Democratic member of Congress and his wife have just been indicted in connection with an alleged $600,000 bribery scheme. Another Democratic member of Congress, not Senator Bob Menendez. This is Henry Cuellar, a House Democrat from Texas. Pretty heavy set of charges spanning nearly a decade of alleged misconduct. But what I'm really interested in is about how these charges bring to light all the kind of absurd hypocrisies about trying to hold our political leaders accountable for wrongdoing. For the right, it's another blow to the argument that this Justice Department is supposedly weaponized against them. They're talking about a two-tiered system of justice. Looks even more ridiculous now that another major Democrat has been charged by these feds. But for the left, it's exposing a double standard when it comes to political corruption. Because it was easy for Democrats to talk a big game about Senator Menendez. Let's get him out. Why? His seat was always going to be filled by another Democrat based on Jersey law and who the governor is. It's an insurance policy. So many Democrats called for Menendez to step down, knowing they had nothing to lose. But this time, there would be real political repercussions if Congressman Cuellar gave up his seat. And ultimately, Republicans could take it. And that is probably why almost no Democrats are calling for Cuellar's resignation. Let's be clear. The alleged crimes here are serious. That is what more people should be talking about. According to the charging documents, the congressman and his wife, Imelda, allegedly took nearly $600,000 in bribes from both a Mexican bank and an oil company controlled by the government of Azerbaijan. The DOJ alleges the congressman's wife received the money through a series of shell companies and performed little to no work for it. In exchange, the congressman agreed to push various pieces of legislation favorable to both the bank and the government. Pay for play. The government's been indicted on 14 counts. The congressman's been indicted on 14 counts and faces more than 200 years behind bars. This indictment is ugly. But you have both sides sort of coming together for purely political reasons to defend him. Let's start with the hypocrisy from the right, the far right in particular. Cuellar can now be added to the ever-growing list of prominent Democrats who have been indicted by a Justice Department that some Republicans keep insisting has been weaponized against them. How do you fit this news in if you've been constantly complaining about the weaponized DOJ? You create an even more outrageous conspiracy theory. Last night on a far right-wing cable channel called Newsmax, host Eric Bolling and his guest, embattled Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, suggested that the real reason that Cuellar was indicted was that he was a conservative Democrat who often criticized President Biden, particularly on issues related to the border.
Is it unusual or is it a coincidence that the one guy who was concerned about the border on the Democrat side, certainly in Texas, or one of the very few, happens to be the one they're investigating?
I don't think it's a coincidence. It's clear that if you criticize the Biden administration, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're going to be targeted.
So, to be clear, what Bolling and Paxton are saying is that because Henry Cuellar dared to criticize the Biden administration for its handling of the border, the Biden DOJ is now indicting him, even though he's a Democratic congressman who agrees with the president most of the time, and whose seat could now easily go to a Republican if he's forced out or he loses. They're not the only ones. Bolling's colleague, a guy named Rob Schmidt, also ran wild with a similarly kooky theory.
It seems clear Biden's DOJ is attempting to prove it's somehow not political by going after another Democrat, perhaps, with this move. And this indictment also makes sense as Henry Cuellar of Texas isn't really a team player with official agenda.
Not a team player. So charge him with 14 criminal counts and threaten to lock him up for 200 years. This is all ridiculous. It's also not the first time that some on the right have tried to make this loony argument. We heard much of the same back in November when the FBI began its investigation into New York City Mayor Eric Adams, also a Democrat, Feds looking into whether the mayor was doing favors for the Turkish government in exchange for illegal contributions to his 2021 campaign. Again, another Democrat puts a hole, again, in this DOJ is weaponized against us theme. So rather than show a tiny bit of appreciation for law enforcement and the hard work they are doing in these investigations and to bring these indictments, some on the right want to look for something, anything, to make it still fit with their theory. So, they claim that the mayor was being targeted because he criticized the White House on immigration. Oh yeah, that's the ticket. And of course, it got traction in right-wing media looking to avoid saying, I don't know, maybe we were wrong.
And we just reported, the DOJ is also going after Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. I mean, coincidentally, when he starts speaking out about the administration's failures on illegal immigration.
Yeah. If you want to send a message, Will,
this guy was almost a Supreme Court justice.
I know, but if you want to send a message to any dissenters, that's the way you do it. You go, you know what? You got any skeletons in your closet? You criticize the Biden regime. We'll use our surveillance force.
Just a coincidence.
Of course.
So of all the political enemies Joe Biden has to worry about right now before the election, the ones he's chosen to target with the power of the DOJ are Eric Adams and Henry Cuellar, two fellow Democrats who've lobbed mild criticism at the White House about immigration. And then how do you explain all the other notable Democrats charged by this DOJ, starting with, of course, Senator Bob Menendez? Federal prosecutors charge him and his wife, Nadine, in a massive bribery scheme in which they claim the New Jersey senator and his wife received lavish gifts, including hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, gold bars, and a luxury car. In exchange, the senator alleged to have used his influence to help enrich 3 local businessmen and aid the governments of Egypt and Qatar. And as we've talked about on this show, there are plenty of other examples of Democrats being indicted by this supposedly biased DOJ. Former Democratic Congressman T.J. Cox of California, Karen Carter Peterson, former head of the Louisiana Democratic Party, former Tallahassee mayor and Florida gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum, all charged on various counts relating to wire fraud and corruption. Gillum ultimately tried and found not guilty on one count, hung jury on others. But then there's Congresswoman Cori Bush. She's being investigated over alleged misuse of campaign funds. Look, for me, this isn't about politics. I just care about trying to hold those who've committed crimes to account. And yet, many on the right have to try to stick with the script, in part to appease former President Trump, to explain away any federal charges against him. Trump now supporting the newly indicted congressman. In a post on Truth Social yesterday, the former president wrote, quote, Biden just indicted Henry Cuellar because the respected Democratic congressman wouldn't play Crooked Joe's open border game. He was for border control, so they said, let's use the FBI and DOJ to take him out. This is the way they operate. Now, of course, there is zero credible evidence to support the notion that the FBI, which is led by lifelong Republican Christopher Wray, appointed by Trump, is somehow retaliating against Henry Cuellar for criticizing Biden. But see, admitting that the weaponized DOJ argument is falling apart would also undermine one of the former president's biggest arguments for why he could and may lead some DOJ-led political payback.
If I win, which I hope we do because we're not going to have a country, but if I win, I could then say, I don't know, this guy, this Democrat's doing great. I don't like the poll numbers. Attorney General, come down, arrest that guy, will you please? Give him a subpoena, indict him. Now, if I win, and let's say somebody comes along on the Democrat side and they're looking very strong, I can call my Attorney General, I guess. Am I allowed to call him and say, you have to indict him on something, just find anything. You can indict him for anything you want, just indict him.
The idea that the FBI is targeting Republicans has never made any sense. And most importantly, the evidence doesn't back it up. How many more Democrats have to be indicted before leaders on the right finally stop insisting the DOJ is unfairly targeting them? Okay. But when it comes to the indictment of Congressman Cuellar, Democrats have also been disingenuous but in a different way. Many of the same Democrats who were so quick to call for Senator Bob Menendez's job when it was politically convenient for them are holding their tongues this time around. See, it's easy to take the moral high ground when there's no political cost. But this time, there is a cost. And almost no congressional Democrats seem willing to pay it. Because according to Texas state law, if Congressman Cuellar steps down or is expelled from Congress, his seat will remain vacant for the rest of the term. Right now, Democrats are within striking distance in the House, 212 compared to 217 for Republicans. But if Congressman Cuellar steps down, the math gets worse for Democrats. Republicans have a little more breathing room, which may explain why House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries came out with a statement in support of Cuellar. Quote, Henry Cuellar has admirably devoted his career to public service and is a valued member of the House Democratic Caucus. Congressman Cuellar is entitled to his day in court and the presumption of innocence throughout the legal process. That's very different from what Leader Jeffries said about Senator Menendez last fall.
The allegations that have been made against the senator are deeply troubling, yet it's hard for me to see how the senator can effectively, at this moment, represent the people he's ably served for decades in New Jersey.
Wait, no mention of how deeply troubling the allegations against Cuellar are? Even though he's been charged with, more counts than Menendez, faces a stiffer potential sentence if convicted? And you heard Jeffries mention the presumption of innocence in his defense of Henry Cuellar. Of course that exists, but innocent until proven guilty only applies to a court of law, where your freedom can be taken away by the government. No other walk of life is the presumption of innocence, where we stack the deck in favor of the defendant required. Democratic Senator Cory Booker explained the difference rather well in his statement calling for Menendez to step down when he said, quote, he, like anyone involved with our criminal justice system, deserves our presumption of innocence until proven guilty. There is, however, another higher standard for public officials, one not of criminal law, but of common ideals. Stepping down is not an admission of guilt, but an acknowledgement that holding public office often demands tremendous sacrifices at great personal cost. Booker, one of 31 Democratic senators to call on Senator Menendez to resign. Dozens of Democratic House members did the same, including some of the most well-known members of the caucus.
Right now, sadly, because of the challenges that we face, because of the skepticism that exists in our country about governance, about this Republican Party that doesn't believe in governance, we've got to stay focused on that. And for that reason, it'd probably be a good idea if he did resign.
But I do believe that it is in the best interests for Senator Menendez to resign in this moment. As you mentioned, consistency matters. It shouldn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah, consistency should matter, which is why it's a little baffling that we haven't heard her call for Congressman Cuellar to step down. Same with Nancy Pelosi and the dozens of other congressional Democrats who were so quick to say Bob Menendez should step aside. By the way, even Senator Booker, he's really shown his hypocrisy on this. Back in 2015, when Senator Menendez was indicted on 14 other federal counts related to another bribery scheme involving a wealthy donor, at that time, Senator Booker had his back. I'll tell you why in a minute. He said, our system of justice is designed to be fair and impartial. It presumes innocence before guilt. I won't waver in my commitment to stand alongside my senior senator to serve our great nation. Our nation and state face critical issues. I'll continue to partner with Senator Menendez to take on the challenges before us. Oh, so then he was talking about presumption of innocence. Now he's saying, well, it's a different issue. Key difference between then and now? Menendez's seat would have been filled by a Republican, Chris Christie, who was New Jersey's governor at the time. Look, you think Henry Cuellar deserves to remain in Congress until his trial is complete or until he's voted out? Fair enough. But if you want to take the moral high ground, if you want to claim you're trying to uphold a higher standard when it comes to fighting political corruption, then you have to uphold the standard both when it's convenient and especially when it's not. The silence about Henry Cuellar from the scores of Democrats who are so quick to condemn Bob Menendez tells you everything. This Henry Cuellar indictment is exposing an enormous amount of dishonesty on both sides. And those of us in the group that I call the marginalized moderate majority, not looking to examine this through a political prism, are left shaking our heads as we watch it unfold. Is it really too much to ask of our political leaders to just try to be consistent when it comes to accountability for wrongdoing? Henry Cuellar may be the one accused of taking the bribe, but it's hard not to come away from all of this thinking that he's not the only one who sold out.